All right. And it looks like we are live. Hola y bienvenidos, angelinos. Welcome back, Galaxy fans, to the Galaxy Guy Show. Como siempre, I'm your host, Chris Maldonado, and hopefully you guys can see me on your video tonight. I went with the camo for all the lurkers out there. We are coming to you tonight live and in person. We've got a great show lined up for y'all tonight. It is, of course, as you've heard, Derby week. El Trafico this weekend, and the Galaxy will be playing their bitter crosstown rivals, LAFC, formerly Chivas USA. We're going to be getting you guys up to speed. We're going to be getting you set on that game, providing you the in-depth pregame analysis. This is a pregame preview show, of course. We're going to discuss the strengths and weaknesses for both teams, stats, analysis, injury report, and just how exactly will our guys stack up versus their 11 and everything else in between. So as the live listeners can see in the broadcast tonight, we have with us some familiar faces. Of course, you guys know Matt Granger. He's with us always. How are you tonight, Matt?
You know what? I'm actually doing really well. This was like a really pretty cool 2 weeks. Your infamous video finally dropped, and it was kind of like a smash hit. It got like over 6,000 views. It's one of our highest viewed videos. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who liked it. All your very kind words were very encouraging. They always help us go, and it's nice to get engagement from the community. From the people who didn't like it, thank you guys as well. I mean, obviously you're taking time out of your day to at least check it out. Obviously this is a very low budget, try hard type of podcast. So some of the stuff we're going to do is going to hit, some of it's not going to hit, and it's naive to think we're going to make everybody happy. But we'll keep swinging, and hopefully some people will keep liking it. And then I guess to the people who don't like anything what we do and don't like any of our podcasts, thank you guys too. Talking to you LAFC fans and the people who like to get triggered for no reason. Your views count too. So thanks for helping us out. Everything helps us grow the podcast.
Absolutely. Shout out to all the lurkers. But that's good. I'm glad you're doing well tonight, Matt. As usual, great having you on. And also, since it is a big game, it is El Trafico, it is LAFC, who better to join us tonight than our good friend, Yahoo Sports reporter and soccer analyst, Andy Diosa. Andy, thank you for joining us tonight, dude. How are you?
What's going on, fellas? Always happy to be back with you guys. Trafico week is a lot of fun. Both sides, the energy is always up many days before the game starts. I'm glad you guys have a podcast because I thought it was canceled from the overreaction. I'm happy that there's still a platform, and I'm excited to look forward to this game that we finally, bearing no practice injuries, will get Chicharito versus Carlos Vela.
Hey, that's the hope, right? It's going to be the first time these two guys are meeting in MLS. But that's good, man. Listen, the importance of having Andy on the show tonight is you can't put it into words because listen, Andy covers both the LA Galaxy and he covers LAFC. He keeps a close eye on everything. So his perspective on both teams will be quite insightful and valuable. So good having you on, dude. We're going to definitely need that. But before we kick off the show, Andy, I have to say, dude, my deepest condolences. The World Cup won't quite feel the same. It won't feel the same without Colombia there, man. It's true.
It's tough. It is true, man. It's an unfortunate series of events that led to it, that we missed the World Cup. Obviously, qualifying out of South America is super tough, but we have no excuses, man. Colombia is a very, very solid team. I think without bias, I think we should be top 3 in South America, but we don't play that way many, many times. So we'll be watching it from the home, like a lot of other teams, unfortunately. But yeah, it's not going to be the same.
Man, it's so unfortunate. I mean, Colombia is a big name in South America. You almost always expect them to qualify for the World Cup, for major tournaments. But this is a World Cup where we're going to be missing some big names, like individual players like Haaland, who is one of the best strikers in the world. Mohamed Salah with Egypt, he's one of the best players in the world. Unfortunate how that kind of played out for them, right? The Colombian national team, they have so many stars. Italy. Oh my God, we're going to see a World Cup without Italy. How bland. No Chile? Come on, Chile for some flavor. None of that. You're not going to see great players from Chile. So Not even great soccer giants like El Salvador, unfortunately.
Man, we're gonna miss them.
That's the real loss right
in the
there.
world of soccer, just giant, not giant in the real world.
Yeah. Let's see. We've already got some people commenting here. Trafico's great. I like to get Maddie Granger's thoughts on Venecia's relegation. We're going to talk about that towards the end, sir. But listen, it's great having you guys on. It's great that everyone's in the live chat right now. It's good seeing you guys. But let's start this off by sitting down some basic stats for both teams going into this match, right? A brief overview, if you will. This is what both teams have accomplished in the stat sheet so far this season. We'll start with LAFC, right? Unfortunately, LAFC sits number 1 in the Western Conference with 13 total points. Actually, they sit number 1 overall in the league, which is crazy, right? Still early in the season, so don't bank on that too much. But those 13 points have come from 4 wins, 1 draw, and 0 losses. Somehow they've managed to remain the sole team in MLS that hasn't been defeated yet. Hopefully that's going to change this Saturday, right? The Goats have a +9 goal differential. It's kind of crazy. The Galaxy is coming into this match sitting 3rd in the Western Conference, which is not bad. 7th overall in the league, which is respectable, with a total of 9 points. Now, the point breakdown for those 9 points is 3 wins, 2 losses, and 0 draws. This is a team that goes for all or nothing, right? We've seen this time and time again, year after year with Galaxy teams. Like, they just hate to draw. They're like allergic to draws, right? It's all or nothing. So, Andy, I'll start with you on this, brother. Looking at those base stats for both teams, the standings and all, I mean, really the power rankings is what matters. But looking at the base standings, would you say that this accurately reflects the season that both of these teams have had so far, or is LAFC perhaps traveling a little bit? You know, they're a little bit on a lucky streak. They're getting a little too close to the sun. Also, on the flip side, is the Galaxy a little bit better than perhaps their current standing, or are they? Where do you see these teams, man? Aside from the stats,
I'll start with the Galaxy. I think for the Galaxy, it's pretty accurate because for the sole fact that they really need somebody else besides Chicharito to score, and I think this is spanning back to last year, and if we're being honest, spanning back to Zlatan days and prior, where you have that one star. And it's a great production. Don't get me wrong there, but you need more of a contribution because that's what's going to get you further into the playoffs, further into a run. So I think for the Galaxy, it's pretty accurate. I think actually I've been really impressed with the Galaxy overall. Vanny came into the season talking about they needed to be solid defensively, and they've been trying to keep that afloat. And Raheem Edwards has been a revelation to me. There's just been a lot of great players that have kind of stepped up, but at the same time, you have to look at the Galaxy schedule. Like MLS did them no favors to start the season. They started against the defending champions. They had to play in Seattle. They had to play that opener in Charlotte in front of 75,000 fans. And now they have a Trafico. Like for the games that they've had, I think they've done pretty well. And Vanny has kind of alluded to that. Like, hey, this hasn't been an easy start for us. It's been tough, and they've been able to manage. So I'm actually pretty impressed with the Galaxy. Besides the fact that there needs to be a little bit more production. Obviously, you can nitpick a lot of different things, but I think they've held a pretty good shape and have been decent. So I think that is pretty solid. On the standings reflects it. LAFC side, I think it's a little different because they have had an easier schedule to start the year. So while there was a whole element of unknown coming in, new coach, a lot of new players, new system, kind of, sort of, it was really a toss-up of what was going to happen. They could have started this season terribly. And I don't know if people would have been super shocked because you are kind of onboarding a lot of new different things. I think the fact that they've started so well is a little bit of a shock too, but it shouldn't be because the team, for the most part, still has a lot of the same talent that it had. And with that talent that they had last year, not being able to make the playoffs, you still were able to see them in stretches play
progress a little bit.
And they just, their problem last year was they couldn't score. So for what it seems like now, they've kind of flipped that switch. For now, like you said, it's super early. But they addressed all of the needs that they really had in the offseason. So I think that they're flying high with good reason, but all it takes is one little hit down in Carson, and that'll level them up. So I think that they're coming in to this game both on really good terms, and I think that's going to just add to the excitement of the game.
Now, before I switch over to Matt, looks like we got a super chat from Rory Lane. Says, you guys are too awesome to get canceled. How awesome is that? Appreciate that very much. It's very nice of you.
Cancel culture is not real. Let people know, man.
Twitter's not real life, man.
Yes,
Twitter's not real life.
That's a fact.
It's a fact. But appreciate that very much. Now, Matt, let me ask you this: would you agree that these teams are evenly matched? I mean, disregarding the standings and the goal differential, would you say that these teams are evenly matched? Because the consensus seems to be that they're just about neck to neck. What would you say?
I would say, I think Timothy in the chat kind of alluded to it. With Delgado, I actually think we're pretty good head to head. I think we're like a 1-2, pretty much. Obviously, losing Delgado to the red card is going to hurt. I'll get more into that when we get further into the podcast about how I thought we would have an advantage there, but now we don't have him, so it's going to be a little bit of a wash there. But no, I think they're actually pretty even. I think LAFC is benefiting from a couple of things. There's a new coach bump, which happens. There's a new guy in town. Everyone kind of buys into the new system. Everyone wants to win. Carlos Vela, I think his contract ends at the end of the year, and they're probably going to look to move him in summer.
In the summer, his contract most likely in the summer.
So he's going to be playing his heart out for the next couple of months. So he's motivated to play, whereas maybe that was in question before a little bit. Brian Rodriguez has seen other players like Atuesta and Rossi get moved on to bigger, better teams, and he's feeling a little left behind, given that he was like the most highly hyped player. So he's also trying to play out of his mind too. So I think there's a lot of things going LAFC's way that's kind of contributing to it. I think if you look at I'll get more into this later, but if you look at like their expected goals, they're actually overperforming statistically what they should be granted. A lot of that has to do with their style though. And in terms of the Galaxy, I mean, I think Andy hit so many good points. The MLS didn't do us any favors. I mean, we played the MLS champs, the other finalists, the Sounders, and then a brand new team in front of, a record-breaking stadium. The fact that the Galaxy have been able to hold up this much is really good. But I mean, the problem remains, Chicha, like he can't do it all by himself. It's just not possible. Islan couldn't do it, and he is the fourth highest goal scorer of the last 40 years. Chicha's not going to do it either. So someone else is going to have to step up there. But no, I think these teams are actually relatively even this year. It should be exciting.
So this is a great segue into our next segment here. We have to dive a little bit deeper into this. Let's talk about the strengths for each team going into this match on Saturday. Of course, let's talk about the strengths first. Let's talk about the LA Galaxy. What are some major strengths for the LA Galaxy going into Saturday's game? Matt, I know you've been taking close notes on the Galaxy this season. Kick us off here. What are the major strengths for the LA Galaxy?
I think the major strengths they have two big ones without not taking into account Delgado. One is Chicharito. He might be the best striker of the year this year so far. I mean, he's just scoring goals for fun. If you give him anywhere in front of the net, he's very, very good. Right. His finishing rate is just so high right now. I'm not sure that there's anyone who can really stop him. And then he looks healthy. He looks fit. He looks like he put on a little bit of meat behind him, and he's still very fast.
Mentally sound.
The other part, and I feel like LAFC is going to make me look like a fool after this game, because that's usually what happens. But our defense has gotten significantly better. I know that's weird to say, but switching out Jono Dos Santos, who was on a little bit of vacation the last 2 years due to injuries, and putting in Delgado has actually helped us a lot, and it's added a lot of stability to the midfield, which has made it easier for our center backs. If you look at granted it's early, it's only been 5 games, but if you look at expected goals against, the Galaxy are actually first in the West right now, with the least amount of goals you would be expected on. If you look at shots against, Galaxy is top 4 in the MLS for least amount of shots against. You're not giving people a lot of chances, and then the ones you are giving them are very low possibility. I don't know how else you look at that, but an improvement. If you look at our games, you have a couple of shutouts, and I think almost every goal is on Julian this year on just mental mistakes. If you take out Julian's 3 to 4 mistakes, the Galaxy have been scored on once. Truly. That's an improvement. So we'll see if this holds up against LAFC. Obviously, having Delgado out changes that. But I think our biggest strengths are obviously Chicha and then the defense right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Now, I'm going to ask your take, Andy. Specifically for this game, what are the biggest strengths for the LA Galaxy versus LAFC?
I think obviously Matt brings it up. Chicharito is just, one of a kind, unparalleled. You see the movements that he makes, those runs that he makes. Nobody in MLS is doing that, and if you're able to connect on a few of those plays against LAFC, whose back line has also been a bit of a toss-up sometimes, that is vulnerable at moments, and that that could turn this game on its head. I'm going to say a name that might surprise people, but I have a reason behind this, and I'm going to say Julian Araujo, because there's been so much talked about how this year he's kind of gotten off to a slow start. But in my conversations with Julian, if there's a game he likes to play, it's against LAFC, and we've seen it in the past seasons where he just turns into a whole different animal against LAFC, mentally, physically, emotionally. He's one of those players that really thrives off of that pressure. He's told me personally that these are the games that he dreams for, that he likes to play. So I think in that mental aspect, if he could get up for a game like this, that's a huge strength, because that might exude energy on other people. And somebody like Raheem Edwards was playing against people that used to be his teammates who maybe might have a little bit of an edge and a little bit of confidence going into this game. I think that mental aspect could really thrive off of a player like Julian and Raheem stepping up. But I think the biggest strength to me, and the fact is that it's a home game. It's the biggest strength that the Galaxy have this Trafico. It's a home game. And
Absolutely.
This is not Bob Bradley's LAFC. Sure, this is a different coach, a different group of players. But a fact is a fact. LAFC has not won a game in Dignity Health Sports Park. And it's been a daunting task from the very beginning to this team. And I don't care who's playing. It's still going to be on the minds of some players who have been there since game one and are still going to be playing Saturday. So I think that the Galaxy fans have to, obviously show up, and they sure will, because it's always a great atmosphere in the stadium for Trafico. But I think that having that be a home game this early in the season, as we mentioned, there's so much that they've had to go through already with the schedule. I think that it's a huge plus for the Galaxy, because they're going to be up for it. And, it's dumb to say that players have to get excited for a game, but this is going to be one. No matter who's going to be on that field, they're going to be ready. I think that to me, that's the biggest strength going into it. Like they're gonna play as confident as ever, because this team has never beat us here, and we're gonna hope to keep it that way.
That I would agree with you. Both things you said there towards the end. First of all, sold out crowd, Dignity Health Sports Park. LA Galaxy has that as a strength, massive advantage, right? They have been unbeaten at the Dignity Health Sports Park. LAFC kind of they seem to mentally shrink into themselves when they play there. They lose their bearings, right? And another thing, very interesting that you say that Julian can be a strength in this game, as well as Raheem Edwards, right? Julian has said that in the past, and you are right. Julian does seem to get extra motivated for these games. El Trafico, he's not exactly a local kid, but he is a California guy. He's got a lot at stake here as far as pride is concerned. I feel like he will show up. As far as Raheem Edwards, maybe trying to show off a little bit to his former team, letting them see, like, hey, listen, I'm thriving here. I'm the assist leader. I'm killing it. This is what you guys missed out on. Kind of like a vengeful ex-girlfriend after she gets fit, goes to the gym and lets you know what you've been missing out on, right? I feel like that's what Raheem Edwards is gonna show up as on Saturday versus LAFC. So maybe the key to victory is there with the fullbacks, right? So very interesting takes. And I see that the commercial underground here, he says he kind of echoed the same thing that you said earlier. But yeah, I see those as strengths. And it's a very good take. Listen, for me, and I'll say this, and I know it's going to seem a little controversial, but hey, I'm Chris Maldonado, Galaxy guy here. The controversy is my thing, right? But the LA Galaxy on like first impression, you'd say that this Galaxy team still lacks a ton of creativity, which is true. You would be right to say that. But listen, the Galaxy, even though they lack a ton of creativity, looking at the stats, this Galaxy team is far better at chance creation than most Galaxy teams in recent years. I know that sounds crazy, but listen, in fact, the Galaxy does rank 4th overall in Major League Soccer for big chances created, third overall in the league for accurate passing, third in possession, which I know you guys don't have to tell me. I know that doesn't mean much unless you're actually converting those passes, that possession into something, but we are third in possession, which against a team like LAFC is important, right? Because LAFC loves to press, and they love to press. And it's a rivalry game. Everyone's trying to impress the new coach, so they're going to be pressing, right? So as long as the Galaxy can maintain possession, pass around, I have a good feeling. I'm confident that guys like Raheem Edwards, Julian Araujo, Victor Vasquez, if he plays, hopefully Douglas Costa, if he plays, these guys can create chances for Chicharito. Chicharito's going to be motivated. He's going to step up to the plate. And I guarantee if those chances come, Chicharito's going to score a hat trick. I'm calling it right now. As controversial as that sounds, Chicharito scores a hat trick in El Trafico. Take that to the bank. But that's my strength for the LA Galaxy going into this game. They are not the greatest offensively, but they are better and they are far improved from last season. We could do it. Now, a lot of that is going to rest as well on the DPs, right? Kevin Cabral has to show up. Kevin Cabral cannot go MIA in this game. Douglas Costa, if he's available, right? We'll get to that. Greg Vanney said today during the press conference that he's confident that Douglas Costa might play. He's kind of, playing it day by day, but he did train. He was at training today, full training. So we're going to see how that goes. These two guys have to show up. Chicha can't do it all on his own. He has scored about 90% of our goals this season. Our other two DPs need to step up. But those are my strengths for the LA Galaxy going into this. We have to do it. We have to now talk about the strengths for the other team, LAFC, right? Andy, I'm going to knock this over to you because I know you're keeping a closer eye on LAFC than Matt and I, and we're a little biased in case you can't tell. So why don't you go ahead and tell us what are the biggest strengths for LAFC going into this game against the LA Galaxy on Saturday?
I think my first one would be the new aspect of it, like we kind of alluded to. It's a new coach, some new players, and I think with that comes a fresh mentality. Like you said, you're trying to impress the coach, you're trying to make a mark. And for Steve Cherundolo and company, there's no better way to make a mark than to get LAFC that first win in Carson finally. Something that they've been trying to do for 4 years now. They haven't been able to do that. It's going to be important for them to get this one because there's a lot riding on it. They could say they had a great start and they could, say it's just another game. But like I mentioned, the loss in this game will be a bit of a knock to them because they know how much pressure is on. So I think with that newness comes with what we've been seeing all season, which is people kind of don't know. Like they said, okay, maybe there's going to be the same system without Balbrand, but it's not really the same system in a way that it runs. The biggest strength to me, LAFC, to get on the real answer, is that their midfield. And it's kind of been their MO when they started. But now it's a different midfield. It's different players, and it's a different operating midfield where we're used to seeing LAFC that likes to use the wing backs and push forward, like you said, and press. But this midfield is a lot more compact. It's built differently with players like Helen Acosta, Elie Sanchez, Jose Cifuentes. They have a lot of different functionalities that it's not the Atuestas, it's not the Latif Bless and the Mark Anthony Kate, that midfield that really ran for them in 2019. And I think Vanny put it best today in the press conference. He said they're so used to being compact. They want to control the game in the midfield, but we need to stretch the field. And I think that's where that strength comes in for them, because if they're able to control that game in that compact shape, then we know moving forward that there's so many attacking options for this team. Unlike when you mentioned Chicharito's the only one scoring for the Galaxy. I mean, LAFC has had defenders score already this season. They've got midfielders, obviously Vela. So there's definitely options there. And we're talking about Chicho Arango, who set the league on fire in 2 months last year when he got here. And he hasn't even really been part of this team due to fitness concerns, maybe a little injury here and there. He's kind of getting back in the fold. But one thing Cherundolo really likes about him is that he's a great passer. And for a player of his caliber that's kind of like a 9, could play kind of a 10, to have him be able to roam, and we saw it in the game against Orlando where he filters a beautiful ball to Brian Rodriguez, is able to score. There's so many qualities that they have going forward, but it all starts with that midfield. And if they're able to stay compact, if the Galaxy could stretch the field and kind of toss that shape a little bit, the game is going to go differently. But I will give Steve Cherundolo a lot of credit, because unlike Bob Bradley, he's not afraid to make changes. He's not afraid to rotate players. And I think that he's knocked it out of the park so far this season in terms of making halftime adjustments. And Orlando was a perfect proof of it. There were other games this season where the first half, there were certain things that weren't great, and you could tell that were against what he wanted to do. And the second half, he either switched a few players, switched the formation, and it changed like this. So I think that that's a big part of going into a game of this caliber. But I think for him, as high as the pressure is, once again, it's a new thing. So it's kind of his moment to be like, okay, this is like, we've been great so far. We're number one. There's still a whole bunch of games left to go. But if we could get this first signature win, which like I said, it'd be a signature because it's down in Carson. Obviously, it's a rivalry game. Then that motivates them so much going forward. So I think that their biggest strength to me would be coaching at this point, and then obviously that midfield.
I agree with that. And listen, Cherundolo is a better coach than Bob Bradley. I would say that as far as what he has demonstrated this season. Um, Something to watch for is those halftime adjustments, like you said, Andy. I have noticed that. Um, Matt, I'm going to knock this over to you now. I know you have your notes, and I know you've been watching some of the LAFC games specifically for this preview that we're doing right now. What are some strengths for this LAFC that could come back and bite us in the ass?
Well, their center backs are actually pretty good passers. They do this really slick thing where they pass it to the compact midfield, they pass it back to the center back or the goalie, and they let the defense draw in, and they knock a long ball over to Arango or they do it to B-Rod. They do it all the time, and they're phenomenal at it. They've gotten a couple of goals off of that, so that's definitely like something to watch out for. Another strength is Brian Rodriguez is a phenomenal athlete. Like that's not shocking anyone's mind, but his ability to press and close down ground is really special. If you're uncertain with the ball, he's going to take it from you, and then that's exactly what LAFC wants, right? Is to win the ball super high. That's another big strength for them. Another strength is that Vela, even though he's playing limited minutes and maybe he's not as all around the field active as he used to be, he's still phenomenal. His vision is unparalleled. He can still change a game with one pass with his left foot. He's still scoring at an incredible rate, and he's motivated because he wants to get moved to a European team. And a DP that's arguably one of the best DPs of the last 3 years motivated is going to be trouble for the Galaxy. But I think my biggest takeaway is that kind of like along the lines of what Andy said is like this is a different type of LAFC team than we're used to seeing. This type of team, it adjusts, and not all of their goals are beautiful goals like they were with Bob. Bob wanted to play that Barcelona pretty boy type of soccer, and this one the LAFC is actually a lot more opportunistic than they used to be. And it's shown in the amount of goals that the defenders make up. Like they've scored 13 goals this year. 4 of them have come from the defenders, one from Fall, one from Murillo, and then 2 from Hollenstedt. And then additionally to that, I think we alluded to that with the expected goals. Their expected goals for the year is 8, and somehow they got all the way to 13. And that's because they work hard and they scramble for the ball. It's just a different type of LAFC team. It's, I think before the Galaxy have won in recent years by being grittier and trying harder. That's not the only thing that we have to do this time. Like this time, we're probably going to have to go, take it to the mats with them and win it there in a little bit different way than we have before. But that's what I would mark down as their strengths.
I would see that too. They're definitely a scrappier team this season. And here are some scary stats, right? Because we're talking about the strengths of our opponent this Saturday. We have to talk about their strengths. LAFC currently ranks number 2 in the league as far as shots on target, right? They average 5.6 shots on target per match, which is crazy. They are number 1 in goals per match. They are the most, a direct team in the league right now. They are just in a direct attack. You look down the stats, goals conceded per match. They're only 4th, down the list. So definitely going to be a tough opponent going forward. But I think the Galaxy, like Matt, you were saying earlier in the show, the Galaxy's improved defensively so much this year. We saw that with Portland. Portland is always a tough game. Of course, we conceded that goal. Unfortunately, it's kind of one of those goals that just, it's so hard to defend against. How do you defend against that? You can't, but we covered the strengths. Now we have to talk about the weaknesses for both teams going into this game. And then I'll kick this off with you first, Andy. What are the biggest weaknesses for the LA Galaxy going into this game on Saturday versus LAFC?
I think an overall weakness is personnel right now. And obviously Markey not playing this game is huge for many reasons. But I think when you try to think about how naturally Greg Vanney could replace him and try not to disrupt things, it's a little complicated because Sasha obviously comes to mind. And from what Greg said today, he should be available, but he just doesn't know exactly at what capacity. I don't know if you rely on him to, go a long distance in a game of this caliber. Then you have players that could fill in, but to me is Costa available? He says he probably will be. How much does he play? Because I think Samuel Grandsir has done great. And honestly, I've been beating this drum, I think, since early this year, maybe last year, is get Kevin Cabral on the bench for a little bit and let Grandsir play with Douglas Costa and see how that works. I just think you get more of a physical team that way. I just think Cabral has had his time to show enough and hasn't been able to. But like you said, it's all about who's going to be on that field. Maybe somebody like Efra gets more time this game, and we've seen him against LAFC do some pretty miraculous things in terms of just dribbling around people and getting the energy up. So I think it's a personnel thing, because these are games that you come into wanting, your team at full strength, and the Galaxy won't have that. And I think that goes along the lines of now who contributes to that Chicharito scoring output, because for teams, I mean, it's not easy to just hone in on one player and say, we're going to try to stop him and have everybody else beat us. But if you come down to that, who is going to be that person? Does Kevin Cabral get one? Does Grand Sir get one? Does Efra score a banger like he did in Charlotte? Like, you have all of these questions that need to be answered. And in a game like this, it might be, exposed on the biggest stage, because it has been true. So I think what I was saying about the compact LAFC midfield, the weakness to me is going to be if the Galaxy are not able to use those wings. If they're not able to get, if it's Grand Sir, Cabral, if it's Cabral or Close-Up, they're not able to use the wings to spread the field, then it's going to be a long game for the Galaxy, because those players in this game have to be at an elite level. And overlapping runs, obviously, from Raheem Edwards and Julian. But I think because what Matt's saying of a player like Brian Rodriguez, who gets open field and is very dangerous, a player like Chicho Arango, maybe if Mahala Opoku, the young LAFC player, plays, that's another one you have to watch out for. So I don't know if Benny's going to want too much of his wingbacks going forward, which puts a lot more pressure on players like Cabral, Grand Sir, maybe Efra to be very active in this game. And if you're counting on Cabral to be that next guy in a game like this, I think there's a little bit of flags or some alarms going off.
So you see that as a weakness for the LA Galaxy, Kevin Cabral.
Yeah, basically. But the thing, like I said, I think Grand Sir, I think this is the perfect game for him. Even if Costa stars, I still would go with Grand Sir, because the physical nature he gives you, that the energy he gives you, that, and I think that the hustle, that last game he played in, obviously he's coming off of a high. He's really excited to prove himself, and I think overall he's just a better player than Cabral. Like, Cabral is talented, we know that, but there's still something lacking there. But I'm like, in a game that you might need to get a little dirty, you might need to have, throw a few extra elbows, I think a player like Grand Sir is perfect for that role. So I think that, once again, like we mentioned, the output offensively, aside from Chicharito, is the biggest concern. And who knows? What is Greg Vanney doing with Dejan Jokovic? I don't know if he's just hanging out. I don't know. I can't tell you. But
there's a guy on our team named Dejan. What?
Dejan Jokovic. I forgot to say his name. That's how long it's been since I said it.
I had no idea we had a player named Dejan on our team. Does that guy? Oh, the guy that sits on the bench every game. That guy. Oh, I totally forgot he was on the team. He hardly ever plays for some weird reason, even though he's one of only two strikers on the team that are proven goal scorers. He's the one guy that
LAFC twice, right? And
twice against LAFC. I mean, it just blows my mind. And I know a lot of people. We've been talking about it on the Discord, the Galaxy Family Discord, by the way. You guys should check us out there. Shout out to the Discord. But we talk about it there all the time. Dejan is just he's a hustler, He's just a completely different player to Cabral. I mean, we saw it in the last couple of minutes in Portland. He ran for that ball, even though the Galaxy was up 3-1, right? He just ran for that ball. He almost took the goalkeeper's head off, almost tore his own nose off trying to get that ball with his head, right? But here's a guy that's just eager. He's hungry. He wants to prove himself. He showed up. He stepped up, big game. Like we saw him step up last time for the LAFC game, scored 2 goals. I just don't get it. A lot of people are just scratching their heads. Why is he not playing? Why is he not playing? Why is Greg Vanney so hesitant to play the 2-player formation? Well, we kind of know he answered that question himself a couple of weeks ago when he said that to play a 2-striker formation with me, they would be sacrificing possession, right? Which is crazy, because the Galaxy's had crazy amounts of possession in the past and they've done nothing with it, right? Which I'd rather be creating chances and scoring goals than have number 1 stats in possession in the game, So it's crazy. Hopefully he gets to play. And before we move on, I want to say big thanks to Jennifer, who dropped $10 for our hot dogs on Saturday. Street dogs on Jennifer this Saturday. Thank you very much. But I agree with you, Andy. I can see that being a weakness for the LA Galaxy. Matt, I'll ask you. I know you have the notes as well. What are the weaknesses for the LA Galaxy going into this game on Saturday against LAFC?
Well, before I say that, Andy is he's so smart. Like, I love listening to Andy give analysis. He just tells it like it is. Like the fact that he even brought Dayon is like phenomenal. I mean, at one point, I think there was an article out that like when Dayon was in Austria, he was like considered one of the top 50 best young players in Europe. Yep. And we play him like 5 minutes and like not more than that. Like that's how goofy it is on a team that can't make playoffs. We can't get this guy more than 5 minutes. It's just wild. Anyways, my 3 weaknesses is I think a lot of people allude to it's missing Delgado, right? So like how do you replace him? And Andy brought it up with like our personnel issues. Maybe we can plug a guy to fill in, but there's really no one who does what he does that way. Our midfield's big issue was that it wasn't very athletic, last year. And then this year it somehow got less athletic because our depth is gone. Even if you could put Sasha in there, who was in health and safety, so who knows how good his lungs are going to be in there, he's naturally slow, right? So then what do you do next? Do you bring up Carlos Harvey from G2, who hasn't been playing with the squad all year? Maybe. Do you put Leardom in the CDM role because he used to play that with Seattle? Maybe, but he hasn't done it all year either, right? Like it's an option, but it's like a last-ditch effort option. Do you switch formation? That's not what Greg does. So that's a very big contentious point there. It's like who exactly is going to fill in there, and I have like no clue what they're going to do. I mean, my guess would be Sasha, and I think we're going to get run over if they do. But that just puts more emphasis on the battle between Ryan and Cifuentes, right? Because if speaking to Andy's compactness of LAFC, like if you look at them statistically, like essentially like Blessing and Ilya Sanchez are working as blockers and disruptors, and really the only one who's creating out of that midfield is Cifuentes. So if Ryan, who's the only athlete we have left in the midfield, because it's not going to be Victor, it's not going to be Afra, it's not going to be Sasha, can stop Cifuentes, we'll be fine. But if Ryan isn't disciplined, which we've known he has been before because he likes to go forward, then we're going to get run over and we're going to be caught in really bad positions. Right. Weakness 2 is, again, Andy, covering all points, alluded to, was Kevin Cabral. So Kevin Cabral actually hasn't scored for the Galaxy since October 20th, 2021. It's been nine games. The last 9 games he hasn't scored. So if he doesn't score against LAFC, that makes a cool 10. He's got to do better. It just is what it is. Like I don't know what else to tell you. 9 games is a lot. 10's even worse. If he doesn't score, we don't have a chance. And I'm the same with you. I would like to go with Granser because this game is going to be an elbow in the face kind of game. The wet noodle is not going to hold up. So, and then honestly, the last weakness I see for the Galaxy is probably going to be Greg Vanney, to be perfectly honest. And maybe that's like a little bit of a hot take, but we've seen Greg Vanney get out coached in big games before by coaches who have similar, if not more, experience. So, the question is Greg Vanney going to be able to adjust and he's going to be able to outcoach the other guy? Because I think talent-wise, it's relatively comparable. I could see us scoring 3 just like I could see them scoring 3. But can Greg Vanney adjust when things go bad? Can he adjust when things are going well? I'm not as hopeful about that. I don't know if I'm not as convinced by Greg Vanney's tactics. I think he talks a really, really good game in the press conferences. I think he's really well spoken, but I haven't really seen him follow through on any of the things he actually says. To the point that I almost like don't even watch his press conferences anymore because I just know like it. Like you're just not telling me the truth. You know what I mean? It'd be a
very corporate reply, right?
Yeah. I don't know. It's like he watched a YouTube video on tactics and then he just brought it up for the press conference and he sounds super duper smart. That's probably a little harsh, but whatever. I said it. So those are my 3 weaknesses for the Galaxy. Those are 3 things that have to kind of be accounted for.
You mentioned the midfield, and I think that's going to be, and like we've talked about it like 3 times, 4 times now on the show since the start. Missing Mark Delgado, right? Missing Marky Delgado is going to hurt this Galaxy team so bad because he's doing a lot of that dirty work in the midfield, right? He's allowing Ryan to go forward a little bit, and now Ryan's going to have to be that guy cleaning everything up, and like Matt said, he kind of loses discipline here and there. He tries to enter the attack, which we understand, right? He did a lot of that when he first joined the Galaxy, and I think at some point the coaching staff had to be like, dude, listen, like, we love that you're going forward and you're like scoring these goals, but you're also a defensive midfielder, and you're scoring goals, but we're also allowing a lot of chances created on our end, right? So he's kind of taking a step back. So we're going to need him to do that this game. And the question is, who else steps up and takes up that role with Markey being gone. So I definitely see that as being a weakness. I don't think Sasha can do it in a game like this. 36 years old, LAFC is going to come and they're going to throw everything at us. It's going to be a high intensity game. Does Sasha have the stamina? Does he have the legs? Does Victor Vasquez have the stamina? Does Victor Vasquez have the legs? It's all questionable stuff. So we've talked about the weaknesses for the LA Galaxy. We have to talk about the weaknesses for LAFC. Like, looking at the stats, right? LAFC is impressive in the offense. You guys can say whatever you want. They've scored a lot of goals. They've created chances. But LAFC is still LAFC, and we're still the LA Galaxy. And we've seen this time and time again. LAFC might be having a hot season. The last 5 years that they've been in the league, they've been hot for the most part, right? Let's admit it. Let's just call it what it is. They've had pretty good teams and they've had good offense. But at the end of the day, the mentality is what kills LAFC. And I think that that's going to be true this time around. It's a big rivalry game. They always kind of lose their bearing against the LA Galaxy, especially when they're at the LA Galaxy's home, the Dignity Health Sports Park. They lose their bearing. I could definitely see that being a thing. Chicharito's on fire right now. Granted, Carlos Vela is also on fire. They're neck to neck, 4 goals each, 5 games played. It's going to be a very good game, a lot of passions. But at the end of the day, I think the LA Galaxy is going to squeeze that win in on them. That's my biggest weakness for LAFC. Guys, add to this. What are some weaknesses for LAFC?
I'll go first so that Andy doesn't take all my points. So I think that LAFC is very susceptible on their outside backs. I think Palacios and Hollingshead are super, super vulnerable. Palacios tends to get forward too much, and he suffers from poor positioning. And then Hollingshead, I think he's okay speed in like a straight line, but dynamically his foot speed is very slow, and he's also very awkward on the ball. If you press him, he'll give that ball up or he'll kick it out of bounds on his own. So that works right to our favor, right? Where we like to bomb our wing backs and get behind them. If we can get behind them and cross it back to the middle, the secondary weakness that they have is that their front three, because they're so used to being outlets, don't trail very well. So there's going to be a lot of chances to score at the top of the box, whether that's Ryan or Efra or Victor, or possibly on a lower end cutback to Chicha. So I actually think that like our game plan works really well against their particular weakness. The wild card here is where is Acosta going to fit? Because when they got Acosta, they put him as a right back, which isn't really his position. He was doing very well with the World Cup team as a midfielder, and they don't seem willing to unseat Latif Blessing. So where Acosta fits in this whole thing is a bit of a mystery. And Acosta, when he has played, at least with LAFC, has been very hot and cold. So possible weakness there, but definitely the outside backs are the weakness. And then just echoing my point from earlier, there's 2 players you have to stop in this game. You have to stop Carlos Velas, and you have to stop Cienfuegos. Cifuentes. Sorry, Cifuentes.
I wish Cienfuegos was still playing.
Oh man, my God, our team would be so good. So you have to stop Sifu, right? Because he's the creator. If the ball gets to him, that next pass is a scoring pass every time. He's that good. And then same thing with Carlos Vela. Carlos Vela just makes you look goofy. And I think my big concern here is that Carlos Vela played against Raheem Edwards. Raheem Edwards is very good going forward, a little bit suspect going backwards. And Carlos Vela is going to take advantage of that. And he would take advantage of anyone who was kind of in that mid MLS tier range, much less someone he already knows and practices against.
Right.
So that familiarity, I know you had spoken to how that could be a point of strength. It could very easily flip and be a
double-edged sword
as well. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I see as their weaknesses.
Interesting take. Raheem Edwards could be a positive or a liability, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it's going to be drastic one way or another.
He's so familiar with Carlos Vela. Maybe that's a strength because he's so familiar with Carlos Vela, his style of play. He knows he knows the ins and outs. So maybe Raheem Edwards will be a positive on that. But good points, man. Let me ask real quick before I switch over to Andy and ask his takes. I want to give a shout out to our friend Scott, who's a listener from Long Beach. One of our faithful followers on Instagram sent me a message just now, and he's like, liking the show so far. So Scott, shout out to you, sir. But yes, Andy, you're keeping a closer eye on LFC than most of us. Give us the unbiased, unfiltered truth, man. What are the weaknesses for LAFC? How does the Galaxy beat LAFC this Saturday?
I'll give you one, and it's great that Matt mentioned the outside defenders because I'm going to go with center backs. And Matt alluded to them being such good passers, but I think in terms of quality, if they go with the center back pairing of Jesus David Murillo and Mamadou Fall, I think that's such a green light for Chicharito to cause problems because of his qualities and that run that he made in the last game is so highlighted and so cheered on the way that he's been able to kind of lose defenders in the box. But you're talking about Mamadou Fall, who's a very young kid, who's a very emotional kid. When it gets tough for him, he gets flustered. You can see he's very reactionary. So I think if Chicharito is able to get in between them two, and Jesus David Murillo, Colombian, I've been open about this from the very beginning. He used to play on my team, my Colombian club team that I follow. I've never been a big fan of the dude. I think that he's very overrated. Yeah. Very, very overrated. And I told
he's diving him out from 8th grade pickup soccer.
I told Tio this from the beginning when he got signed to LAFC. I said, "Yo, man, like, I don't know what they see in this guy." And I honestly, he hasn't played terribly, but I think he's very vulnerable. I think he's very vulnerable, being 100% honest. So I think with that center back pairing, which I don't believe is their best pairing, and they're still waiting for Eddie Segura to recover from his injury, and they still have other defenders that they could kind of mix around. But I think with a player of Chicharito's caliber, if somebody like Costa plays, who is able to filter passes, somebody like Efra plays, who's able to pick out those spots just better than a lot of other people, it could be some trouble in between those defenders. So that back line for me is going to be a test for them because once again, we know that their midfield going forward, it's quality. And like Matt said, Sifu is such a creator, such an energizer. But if the Galaxy are able to kind of slow down that whatever which way, then you're going to be looking for other options. So I think that main thing is trying to make that back line be uneven because that's Cherundolo's number one focus. He played as a defender. He really is trying to get that back line, whoever's in the back four, to be very solid. But I think that a player of Chicharito's caliber is going to be able to sneak in between somebody like Fall and somebody like Murillo. I think that could be some really big problems for the LAFC team. And at the end of the day, like you said, I think it comes into a mentality thing because this is such a huge game for them coming into the stadium, coming into these circumstances. But as I mentioned before, LAFC hasn't played a game of this caliber. This current LAFC under this management, under this rationale of however they want to play, haven't played a game of this caliber. The toughest game they played this season was at home against Portland, and that ended in a draw barely because there was a late goal in stoppage time. And after that game, the mood was that just wasn't good. We weren't good. We didn't do what we wanted to do. Like, sure, we got.
And this is a Portland team that's been struggling all season.
Exactly. Yeah. And I bring that up because that's a home game. It's a Portland team, but it's a Portland team that has always given LAFC problems back in the Bob Bradley days, back with the other players. So I think that mentality of, okay, this is a huge game, a tough opponent who gives us issues. They went into that Portland game thinking, everything was sweet because they were playing Colorado and playing Inter Miami. Everything is not sweet when you run into teams of calibers of Portland's, of Seattle's, who they haven't played yet, or a Galaxy team that's going to be very hungry. So I think that this is going to be a huge like slap in the face or an awakening moment to say, hey, like these games we've been playing have been, okay, sure, we've been showing out. But like I said, Inter Miami, Orlando, who the Orlando game was actually really entertaining. It's just, it's not – Orlando came obviously to Dignity Health Sports Park, and it was an interesting game. But Orlando's not easy. But I think that's obviously their best win of the season so far. But like I'm trying to allude to is they played that Portland game, and they were like
very suspect.
Yeah, a little suspect. Yeah. And I think that they're susceptible to being that same way against the Galaxy, to being that way against quality opponents. Not to say that they can't beat them, but I think that all goes into play when you look at the schedule they've been playing and how they're coming into this game.
Yeah, all good points. Just to add to Andy's point, if we can disrupt the middle and stop Sifu, then it forces the long ball, right? And if it forces the long ball, we're going to win that battle. Because if you look at our back four versus their front three, we have better athletes, right? You put Julian against B-Rod, Julian's going to win that just because he's just a tougher guy. You put Depew, who's like 6'5", and just like built, or Williams against Arango, they're going to win that header. You put Raheem Edwards against Vela, he's going to win that header. So, yeah, I think Andy hit it right on the header. You stop Sifu, forcing that long ball, we'll win. And then we just kind of got to like thug out them on the field. And for a lot of these guys are new. The coach is new. It might just be too big of an atmosphere for them. And for us, this is everyday life to be on this platform. So
every game, nationally televised, big crowds, big opponents.
It's going to be a phenomenal weekend as these El Traficos never disappoint. And we saw it last season. Both teams weren't doing so well. Even when LAFC is not doing good, they play their best against the Galaxy, right? Because this is like their MLS Cup for them, right? When they play the Galaxy, it's their biggest game of the year, so they always show up, right? The Galaxy always seems to play their best games against LAFC, so do not mistake this, right? And like Casey sent his notes to us, he's predicting that this is going to be a very high scoring game. I don't expect any less from this game. It's going to be a high scoring game. It's going to be a balls to the wall, right? So the fans are going to show up. LAFC fans will be there, unfortunately, but they will be there. And it's going to be great atmosphere. So looking forward to seeing everyone out there. But before we sign off, I have to do this. And I know the chat room's already putting their predictions on there. Of course, a lot of Galaxy fans. But I'm going to ask you guys, what are the predictions for this game Saturday when the 90th minute whistle blows? What's the scoreline at the end of the day? Don't be afraid to hurt some people's feelings. Unfiltered, call it like it is. We'll start off with you, Andy. What do you think, brother?
I'm so terrible at predictions, man. I hate it. I'm gonna go 3-1 LAFC. I really need to see. I need to see somebody else besides Chicharito scores what it comes down to. I think that this is a very talented Galaxy team. I think that there's potential for this team to actually to make a run. And, you know, as the season progresses, you could see a lot more from them. But it needs to be more. Chicharito, for as great as a player as he is, I think that's such a crutch for the Galaxy. But listen, we spent 50 minutes talking about this game, and we've gotten to the same point as we do before every Trafico. We never know what's going to happen in these games. That's the best part about this rivalry. We absolutely have no clue how it's going to play out. We could, preview it to death and give predictions, but I think the best aspect is that these games always provide something so unique in terms of just soccer. Never mind the energy and the fans in the stadium and whatnot. But I think it's just so much fun because we go into it every time and we have no clue. I mean, we meant talking about a Chicharito hat trick. Remember when Zlatan did that in that game and how crazy of a spectacle it was at the stadium? It was. I think that might be one of the best single performances I've ever seen in my life live. And I've seen LeBron James in the NBA playoffs a few times, and I was just like, "This is incredible!" Like a prediction's a prediction. I just think it's going to be a great game. I think it will live up to the hype. Finally, like I said, prayers that it is Vela and Chicharito on the field first time, and
it's going to be balls to the wall, man. I'm looking at some of the predictions here. Everyone, by the way, is predicting a Galaxy win, which I agree. I think the Galaxy is going to edge out.
On a Galaxy podcast, you're predicting Galaxy win.
So far, I haven't seen a single clean sheet, which means Galaxy fans are still not very confident in our defense, but I do see this being a very high scoring game. Timothy says 3-2 Galaxy. That's my take. I think the Galaxy will win 3-2, 3-1, hopefully. I doubt this is a clean sheet because I know it's going to be balls to the wall, but 3-1 here from Phil. Our friend,
goals. I think Verbals has it. That's what my prediction is. 3-2 Raheem and a brace by Chicha. I think he's got it.
Arquitecto Verbal says 3-2. That's actually what I was going to say. Like Raheem Edwards.
You know what? If it's 3-2, Raheem scores and a brace by Chicha, Verbal can have my Galaxy Guy podcast jersey. That would predict it right. He can have that jersey.
Man, that would be the cherry on top if Raheem Edwards scores a goal. And I'm saying this live on the air. Somebody take this, tape it down. If Raheem Edwards scores that goal against LAFC, that's going to be like a huge slap in the face to LAFC, right? Like we were talking about this earlier, like the ex-girlfriend. Like a Will Smith slap, exactly. LAFC will be Chris Rock and Raheem Edwards will be Will Smith. We're going to make a meme about that, by the way, if he does. It's going to be a huge slap across the face. Like, this is what you guys missed out on. I just scored on you guys. Ha for not renewing my contract, right? So that's also my prediction. I agree. I hope that Chicharito scores multiple goals this game. I think he will. He's going to show up big. His mentality's right this season. He's motivated. So excited to see that. But guys, unless we're adding anything else, I think we're good. It's a wrap. What do you guys say?
I'm here for the petty. I'm here for Raheem Edwards' goal for sure. I want to give a shout out to the goalies, man. I really am a big Jonathan Bond fan, and I think Crepo has been great for LAFC. So we're expecting goals, but the goalies usually don't get a shout out. And I think that these are two top tier MLS goalies who could obviously have a say in what happens in this game. So I'll say that. And my final point will be, I know it's a rivalry. I know y'all like to joke around, and joking is healthy, but don't be stupid at the stadium, please. Yell stuff, say stuff, obnoxious stuff. Just don't throw stuff. Don't fight people. It's not worth it, man. It's a soccer game. It's fun to talk crap. I'm a soccer fan. I'm a sports fan. It's all in good fun, but it's not worth getting in trouble for. It's not worth doing anything dumb. So enjoy the game. Make it a hostile environment as it should be, but do it in the
make it a hostile environment.
It's a rivalry game. It should be a place that they don't want to go in. They should be hearing swears. I'm cool with all that. They should be hearing nonsense. I'm cool with all that, but there's a fine line that people shouldn't cross that has been crossed certain times, and we don't need to see that. We don't need
Absolutely, to see that. I agree with that, man. Everyone needs to just moderate their emotions, moderate their drinks a little bit, maybe a little bit better. But it's true. We can have a beautiful rivalry, a fun rivalry where we talk so much crap about each other without having to actually get to physical blows, right? So, but that's it, guys. I hope to see you guys there at the game on Saturday. Matt, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I think
we're good.
Hit it. No, don't fight. Like, just remember, like, no matter where you sit in the stadium, whether you sit in the middle or in the end, whether you're a supporter group, no matter what shirt you wear or whether you hold a microphone after the game, like you're just a fan. Like, and these are all just people. They're your neighbors. So just be cool. Be an adult. Have fun. Be an adult, and then leave and get on with the rest of your life.
Excellent. Let me give you guys a secret. The players are actually friends too. They don't hate each other.
That's true. Behind when the cameras turn off, they're all friends. But alrighty, guys. So thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you to our wonderful guest, Andy Diosa from Yahoo Sports. You guys should check him out. He's tagged on my Instagram. You guys just check him out, look him out. His content is always great. Matt Granger, always a pleasure having you on, brother. So from me, Chris Maldonado, your host, the Galaxy Guy podcast, we're looking forward to seeing you guys Saturday at the stadium, cheering the Galaxy victory, 3 points. Good night, guys.